Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back to the Love Week podcast, episode 3.
Three.
All right. Some housekeeping things. So the giveaway is still going on. I see some of y'all don't like free money.
No, not at all.
Make sure that you are rating the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube podcast, and leaving a comment as well for us. And then make sure that you're letting us know when you're done on the post that we have on Instagram. You can find us on Instagram, once again, Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, and YouTube Podcast. We're going to go ahead and most likely go live to announce the winner for the giveaway. Once again, it is, what is it? How much?
So it's 150 poems.
So wherever you choose.
And it's going to be a gift card, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm just like, y'all not biting at free money is crazy to me.
Y'all being lazy is crazy.
Yeah, it is what it is. As you see, we're in a different atmosphere. We are outside. We're enjoying the sun. We need it. So
what a lovely day.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We are going to start where we left off. So here we are in Vegas, living the life, drinking, having fun. We weren't really partying much because my parents were there, but we were eating good. Okay. And we ended up having did we do it? No, we had a super early flight. It was like maybe like a 5 a.m. flight.
5 a.m.
Back to Norfolk. Okay. And so, we left everybody earlier than they all left. They all had later flights. So me and Adam get on the plane. We get to where we need to get to, order Uber. And it was a very kind lady who took us back to where we had parked at. And so as we're getting there, I have this weird feeling in my stomach, but then I look over and I see Adam also has this weird look on his face. And it's like one of those feelings where you feel like something's wrong, but you can't really put your finger on it. But for me, I already knew what was about to happen. And I don't know why, but I did. So we pull into the parking lot and we both don't see the car there. The car is gone. It is not there. And we both look at each other and we proceed to get out of the car. And the lady's like, okay, I'm going to wait for you guys to get to your car. Our car was there. So we were just like, oh, no, it's fine. You can leave. And we're walking towards another car, acting like it's our car. And she can see the panic on our face. And so she's looking and we're just like, ha, acting like we're trying to get into this car that is not our car. Yeah. And so then he was like, you could go. It's fine. Thank you so much. And then she left.
But I think we actually acted like, okay, we're going to go inside.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were walking towards a car. Yeah. And then we were just like, yeah, we're just going to go inside. And I think that's when we went inside. And was there a person? No, that was when
there were a few people training in there. Yep.
And we were like, hey, our car's missing. And Adam had most of that conversation because I think I got on the phone with my mom and I was just like, yeah, so we got back and the car's missing.
Yeah, so I looked and I guess we found, after the lady left, some towing sign.
Yes, we did.
And so then I was like, okay, so it might have been towed. So we went into the gym and we started talking to somebody that came up. It was a woman that came up to us that was training. And she got the owner of the gym and that head black belt that I had mentioned in the last episode that we had talked to, that I was communicating with. And he came up and started talking to us and basically let us know that the lot, the building, he doesn't own it. He owns the gym and the brand of the gym, but he's got a lease on the space. So all the parking spots in the back aren't his to manage. So the property manager or whoever else they had mentioned to the property manager, like, hey, somebody's parked back here. And they ended up towing my car.
Yeah.
And he never communicated with the property manager that, hey, somebody's parking back here, like before we ever got there, to let us know that, hey, this might not be the right spot that you guys can park at, and we'll try to figure out something else.
It was so bad. And then that's when he came and got us.
Well, he ended up getting dressed, and then he was like, I feel bad, so I'm going to take you to the lot to go.
So, yeah, and we stayed with him like all day. Mind you, like I said, we left at 5 something, and there's a whole time difference. I want to say it was
Eastern to what?
I'm talking about what time it was. Was it?
So it was early afternoon when we got there.
We stayed with that man all day.
Yeah.
And we still had to go pick up Braxton. So Braxton went back with his with the breeder, because at that time he couldn't get into anywhere. He was only 7 weeks old, and he didn't have any shots or anything, because you can't get them that early. So we ended up sending him back with the breeder,
which was on the way.
Yeah, and he got to hang out with his mom again.
But yeah, we were there pretty much all day until I want to say like 4 or 5. It was
his car stunk.
Yeah. And then it started to rain, so we got there at the tow lot that they had it at, and there was only one person working, and they were out doing another call.
Yeah.
And nobody could come and get to us. We kept calling the dispatcher, but they were like, hey, it's going to be a while. So we sat there it had to be like 2 to 3 hours, just sitting with this guy, talking to him. They finally came, got the car out. It had to be, I think the sun started going down.
The sun started going down, yeah.
So it had to be around, because this was earlier in the year, so this is like May or something like that we went. So the sun wasn't staying up as long. It wasn't the summer yet, so it's about 5 o'clock-ish. The sun started going down. And then we left. We got the car. We left.
Still had to drive to go get Braxton,
which was an hour away.
And then picked him up, and then went back to.
Yeah, we didn't get back home until probably around 9 or 9:30.
It was so bad, and I was like, absolutely not, never again. But yeah, all in all, to say we persevered during that time, because when I tell you I had one of the worst attitudes ever, because it's just like, what in the world? Sorry, guys. Braxton's outside with us. Yeah, he's hanging out with his parents. So something that we didn't really talk about. So one thing that I do want to kind of discuss in these episodes is kind of putting you guys into the situation of when we meet people. So, and then you'll see significance on when they start coming onto the episode. One thing that we did not mention when we went to go get Braxton, we got Braxton the day after we went to George's probate. George is going to be a person that's going to be inside of this later on, because that was my first time ever meeting George, and I had not met Ashley yet. George and Ashley are a married couple. Adam knows both of them, but this is my first time ever meeting George. I don't know where Ashley was there at the probate, but I did not meet her there. But you'll see, we start saying names and stuff like that, and then they start coming back into the picture later on and stuff like that.
Yep, and another name that will be coming up in the story today.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to him.
But it's Dre and Mo.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's when we'll talk about that. But one thing that we also did not mention is we were battling with something that was eating our relationship alive. That was birth control.
Yes.
So when we moved to Richmond, a little TMI, but I make sure I set up every year my, exams and stuff, OBGYN appointments and stuff like that. I was a person that I was on birth control before I met him and stuff like that. But then I think I just stopped for a bit, and then I was like, I want to get back on it. Only to help with my menstrual cycles, and women, you guys know this. Um, so I went to the OBGYN and I got back on birth control. And that birth control was eating me up. So that was one of our biggest issues in our relationship at that point in time. The hormones in it was something that I had never, ever, ever, ever dealt with before. Um, Adam he couldn't even do this. He couldn't touch me. I just would get like, absolutely not, don't touch me. He couldn't do anything. I didn't want him to hug me. I didn't want him to do anything. And I know from my vantage point how it looks, but I want you to kind of share.
Yeah, it was. So, without giving up too much TMI, I guess, in the situation, I mean, I'd say we're largely still in the, quote unquote, honeymoon phase, as people like to call it.
That's my bookie.
Yeah, but things were, we ain't gonna sugarcoat. We were getting it on, bumping uglies, as I call it.
I'm sorry if my parents are listening to this.
And it was, at the beginning, it was great. It was, it was something new. It was different. So, but then as we moved in together with each other, just that kind of spark started to fade, and it was fading very fast. And it was, something we would talk about, and I was trying to get some more perspective on and figure out, like, hey, what's going on? Because there were things in my past that I had to deal with, as it related to, like, to sex and sexual health and things of that nature. So, like, I had a very bad, at that time, porn addiction. So I had worked through that, and haven't gone back to that. But it's something that it was an issue in our relationship a little bit earlier on, and it was causing friction from Anisha's end, and I was like, okay, well, I can't have this continue. So now I'm like, okay, well, we got over that, but what else is there to get over? And I just couldn't figure it out. Is like, are you not attracted to me anymore? Or like, what's the issue? What am I not doing? So we would, we'd argue about it, we'd talk about it, and it was a struggle. It was a real struggle at that time, just trying to, like, keep that romance and stuff alive and stay connected. But it's like, how do you do that when your partner literally, like, most of the time doesn't want you within like 5 feet of them, and doesn't want you to touch them and everything like that. So, like, all the memes that you guys see, or the videos you'll see on TikTok of, like, the husbands or the boyfriends that just look at their significant others and wives as like, you're the most attractive woman, and they're always touching them and stuff like that. That's me. So
yeah, he's very, very touchy.
Yeah, so one of my dominant love languages,
his knee is touching mine right now.
Yeah, one of my dominant love languages is physical touch. So when that's not present, it gets to be a friction point.
We sleep holding pinkies.
No, we don't.
We do. We sleep holding pinkies like
We
this.
do not.
He's lying. You're not telling the truth.
We don't sleep holding pinkies.
You know we do. We sleep holding fingers like this sometimes.
Oh, wait.
Where you going?
I don't know. Back here. Yeah, so it was a struggle. You guys could probably hear this plane even in post production, just to let you know, because
like a fighter jet.
Yeah, it does sound like a jet.
It's probably one of those jets that are the military jets.
Yeah, you're getting a live listen to a Toledo jet. But yeah, so it was a struggle. It was a real struggle, just trying to figure out what was going on with you and how we were gonna work through this, and trying not to take it personal.
Yeah, that's when we really started talking to Dre and Mo, which was married. They were married. We were still in the dating phase. So they were very, 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 very helpful when it came with having conversations like that and stuff like that too, because a lot of the stuff that we were dealing with, they most likely had already dealt with it or knew somebody that had dealt with it. So they were very helpful in a lot of situations that we dealt with. And you'll see that they come up a little bit later in this conversation to help us with something else.
Yeah.
So let's see. So let's talk about annual training. We kind of touched on it just a tad bit when the reasoning why we got Braxton was because you would be leaving for drills, and I would have to be here by myself. So
Yeah.
I'm still working at Rooms to Go. I never ever leave Rooms to Go until we actually leave. So just so you know that, I'm with Rooms to Go through and through.
Yeah, so we wanted a big dog that looked scary and intimidating, right? So that when I leave, because we were hood adjacent and where we were living at the Roach Motel, when I leave, that she'd be, fine and feel protected, but then also have some protection. So I had gotten, this was around the time I was finishing up working. Well, yeah. So I was working with Service Master, and right before I went off to annual training, they had forced my hand to resign from being I was a recruiter with them slash like receptionist at some, or I don't know. I was supposed to be recruiting, but a lot of the tasks that I was doing were just kind of like a assistant.
Don't you hate that
task.
though? Don't you hate like when you literally apply for a job and you get the job, but then like it's like underlying things that you're doing, and it's like that's not what I signed up for.
Right. And
like what the heck?
And it was the business owner. He was very like overbearing and just like he was micromanaging, but then he would also go behind and like do stuff himself. So it was an interesting place to be in. But right before I left, I guess they figured out that they couldn't just outright fire me because he had never written up anything against me. I didn't have any warnings or write ups. There was no legitimate process that they followed, and it would have been bad. So he devised this whole scheme to get me out because he had.
Tell him what you were doing now.
Oh, so yeah,
that I told him not to
yeah.
do.
So I was at that time really heavy into
with Dre,
really heavy into wanting to get into real estate, and there was one of my coworkers. She had her own little business, and she would make like little wreaths and stuff and flower arrangements, and she would literally sell it from her desk. And the owner knew. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't think this is going to be too big of an issue because literally she doesn't do really any work. She barely comes in. And when she does come in, she's literally walking outside to deliver her pieces to people and would talk about it all the time. So whatever. So I was doing some real estate research and stuff on the computer, and he ended up one day looking. He went behind me, and I've seen him a few times do this, like get on that computer after if I got up to go to the bathroom or something, he would be on there. But I was out at we were doing a hiring event out in the town, and I came back, and I guess he was on that computer. He looked at the history, and then that gave him all the ammo that he needed. And yes, Anisha warned me, like, hey, keep that stuff off of that computer.
He don't be listening.
I didn't listen, and he didn't cite that as a reason, but he didn't directly cite that as a reason, but that was in there. We had talked about it. He had mentioned it. And he let me go, and this was maybe a week or so, maybe a few days before I had to go to annual training.
Mm-hmm.
And annual training that year was going to be, I think it was 3 weeks long, 2.5 to 3 weeks long. And it was literally down the street. It was 40 minutes away from where our apartment was. But since my unit is in Pennsylvania, and at that time it was in Johnstown, PA, I had to drive. They didn't give me the option to drive my car directly to there. I had to drive up to PA, take a military convoy down, which was 12 hours, with 5 vehicles that I led before the rest of our company came out. We got there early to set up and do stuff, but 5 vehicles, it took 12 hours down. Then I had to drive 12 hours back up. And then it was, again, 5.5 hours every month for me to get to drill from my apartment. So I had to drive 5.5 hours back down.
So mind you, when he's about to go to annual training, we forgot to say this. Braxton's not with us right now.
No,
Braxton was
not,
gone.
yeah.
He was with my cousin Brandon. He was in his own training. Braxton was horrible.
Braxton was a nuisance.
He was
and
so
a nightmare.
bad. And that's where he was. He was with my cousin being trained. And so it was just me and Adam in the house. And at this point, when he's going to annual training, it was going to just be me. And then...
Yep. And we arranged for your oldest niece
to stay with me.
To stay out. And your parents... It ended up being that I think it was only a few days difference between the time that I was leaving to the time that they were bringing Braxton and bringing your niece down. Because Braxton was in training a little bit before that. Or it might have been a week. You would have only been without me or Braxton for about a week.
Yeah, it wasn't
at
that
long.
time.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. And then he was going to come down. So
they were going to pick him up, yeah.
So they picked him up. They brought her down to stay for a little bit with you, and then brought Braxton down because his training was completed.
Mm-hmm. So you're gone, and
I'm in the field.
He's in the field. He's in the field, and I take my niece out one day. And at this time, so me and my niece, just a little background, we're 10 years apart. So there's a little bit of a age difference, but we would basically be like sisters is kind of how I see it. So at this time, I was 22, I think. So what, she's 12. And she was in that TikTok phase because TikTok was around at that point in time.
I think it was newer.
It was new.
It wasn't as big.
So
yet.
She was on TikTok, and like I would take her with me to the store. She's popping her phone up doing TikTok dances in the store. This is what she wanted to do. My niece was so boring. And what's so funny is I'm not just no tea, no shade. My other niece is in there, her sister. She's around that same age. She's boring too.
Big boring.
Boring. They don't do anything. They just sit there and sit on TikTok all day. So I have her with me. I was like, let's go out, go get some food. So we go out to go get some food. And when we leave, Braxton always goes in his crate, okay? So I come back. We come back in, and I go let him out. And I was like, Braxton, you're so silly. Where did you get spaghetti noodles at? When I say spaghetti noodles, spaghetti noodles are like long. So I'm like, where did you get these spaghetti noodles from, and why are they in your crate? Y'all, I let that boy out, and I was like, something's not right.
Yeah.
They were worms. Braxton had worms. And I panicked because I did not know what to do. I said, you have worms.
For those of you who are probably thinking, what are the worms? So for dogs, they have to take this like deworming medication,
which
because
is so
the bacteria,
crazy.
Yeah, especially as they're puppies, they have to take it routinely, very often. I think it's maybe a couple of every couple weeks or every month they have to take it.
Mind you, we have never had a puppy, so we don't know this.
We've never had a dog between the two of us, nor have we had a puppy from literally the first week that you're legally allowed to pick up a dog from a breeder and then taking the dog home. So he got all of his deworming medication and all this stuff. Like, the breeder did his job. We just didn't know this stuff. And we had thought that it was like, oh, well, the breeder didn't let us know. So, hindsight being 2020, we take a lot of responsibility for not knowing and not doing our due diligence. In the breeder that we had, Isaiah, he's amazing. He still breeds Rottweilers and other dogs. So I highly recommend him. He's still in Virginia. If you guys want to ever think about picking up a dog. I think he does Frenchies, Barabels, and now Rottweilers. So two. So, but he started with Rots, and Braxton was in the first litter. But yes, we didn't know about the worms, and these worms are like through bacteria. They kind of build up and they grow. So, and these worms can come through.
Huh? You put your thumb up and it does the little
Oh,
thing.
So these worms can come through like dogs eating like stuff, or if they eat stuff in the grass, or if they.
It was nasty.
Some dogs, and it's weird, but some dogs will eat other dogs' poop or their own poop. So if they happen to do that, then they can get the bacterial worms. Like they start off real small, they can get those worms through that. So they could come in a variety of different ways, and then they grow. And
those things were huge.
It was huge. It was
like 3 of them.
They were like
huge,
long, and they coil.
It was nasty.
So Braxton's about maybe 2 months old at this point. So
yes.
He's not.
He's a little beagle boy.
He's we called him Beagle Boy because he looked like a beagle stage.
He was so small still, but his
head
ears
was small,
were super big, and they would flop like this.
Yeah, we'll put some pictures up so you guys can see on social media, on our Instagram. But we called him Beagle Boy. But those worms could get so big that they end up like really being destructive inside of a dog, and it can kill a dog. Thankfully, he pooped them out.
No, he threw them up.
So they're either going to come out one of two ways. They're going to throw them up, or they're going to poop them out. But they could really die from trying to do that if the worms get that big. So thankfully, they didn't. They got big, but they didn't get that big. And we didn't keep up with the medication.
We didn't know that. Yeah. So I ended up taking him to the emergency vet because there was nothing else that was open.
I was in the field, guys. I'm in the middle of. It's the middle of the night, right? It's like 9 or 10 o'clock. It's dark outside. All I have is a tent that I'm sleeping in with a couple other people. I'm by a generator so I can keep my phone charged and talk to her. But everybody in my unit is sleeping, and she's going off screaming at me about these worms, and like, hey, are you able to leave? I was like, I can't leave. I'm in the middle of a field on a military installation.
I'm not good with stress.
She's way better with stress now, and we'll talk about another stressful story that she had to.
Oh God, yeah,
but
no, that one was bad.
In the early stages of our relationship, horrible with stress.
My dad said my mom is really bad at it too, so I'm assuming that it just trickled down.
I have my theories on it, but I'll give those later.
Wait, what?
On why you're not that well equipped to handle stress and like work through it, but we'll talk about that later when we get to the second story of your stress. But
it's because my dad saves me out of everything.
Yes, she was horrible with stress.
My dad saves me for everything.
She's calling me, talking to me about it. I'm like, hey, just take him to the vet if you can. And I end up messaging the breeder, and I'm like, hey, you didn't prepare us for this and this and that. And he was so nice, so
when
gracious.
I look back at it, though, I would have probably texted you back and have been like, boy,
right, that's not blocked. That's not my problem. But he was so nice and so gracious that he refunded us some of the money and to put towards Braxton's medical costs out of the ER.
Mind you, we were broke, so
yeah. He sent us that money right away, and was like, "Here."
It was like a $700 bill, and I tried to apply.
Like, I think 300.
It was something like that. I tried to apply for insurance at that point in time, but like I said, I was 22, and I had never had a credit card a day in my life, so I had no credit to be looked at for insurance or
for the dog,
for finance. Like it was like the
you were trying to get
thing.
financing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I was trying to do financing for it, so I had never ever had a credit card. And if I could look back, I would tell myself, just get one credit card. That's it, because credit cards come back up later on in the story, and you'll see. But no, I tried to do financing, couldn't do that. So my mom stayed on the phone with me just wanting to know what was going on. Like I said, I'm not good with stress. My parents took care of a lot of stuff. The days that we were literally broke and hungry, my dad was depositing money in my account. Um, and that's the same thing that happened in this situation. We didn't have it, and they sent me the money for Braxton for
Yeah,
his for the vet. So
they always come up to help out in clutch, and it's amazing. Like, both sets of parents, they help out when they can, like my parents and your parents. But it's a Anisha's their only daughter, and she's the youngest. So I, you know, her dad doesn't want to see her go through issues or pain or fail. But he's like that with your niece and nephews too, his grandkids.
but Adam was just like, when I tell you, when we were struggling in Richmond, I would be boohoo crying in the corner like, I don't like this, we're poor, and he'd be just sitting over there like, it is what it is. I'm like, no, this is not fun. Like, what is your problem?
I've gone through situations in my life, and then we'll get back to like the story, just so you guys don't feel like you're lost in this. But I've gone through situations in my life where I've struggled. Now that doesn't necessarily mean like with my family per se, but there were times that we had little struggles here and there. But there were definitely times as I was growing up where I had to kind of get things on my own. Like my dad one day told my brother and I, like, "Hey, I'm cutting your phone plan off, and maybe at some point in time later you'll get it back." But I had to wait maybe a year or two after that to start getting my own phone. Like I started getting a stipend from doing some work in the summertime for the church that I was going to. So then I got a minutes phone, like the Cricket minutes phone and all this other stuff, track phone and stuff. So, and then I built my way up to working my own job and then getting my own phone. So like there were times where I had to like get it for myself and understand kind of early on how to budget a little bit. Again, I wasn't perfect. I'm still not perfect, but I had that experience, and I think that's what Anisha didn't have, because
Yeah, no, my parents,
would step in and they would help out.
I don't even know how to catch like the city bus.
No, yeah,
That's like how
she
I know the yellow bus. I mean, the school bus would come and pick us up at the corner, but no,
like public
I don't
transit
know how to
stuff
do
like
that.
that. Like if
I took public transit in Chicago by myself though. I know how to do that. The train.
But that was years later. I think at Anisha at that point in time, if you were to tell her, because when I met her, she was like living with her. You were living in a house
Yeah, with my
with your brother
brother
and some
and
other
then a
people,
bunch of like
but it
we had a
was
bunch of roommates, but it was a house.
but it was only like a block away
It was a block
from
away from my parents'
your
house. I would go to
parents.
my mom. I would go to my parents' house and go shopping.
So if you were to drop her by herself, let's say in Richmond without me at that point in time, she would not really know what to do, and she would
Hi. Hold
she
on,
would get
guys.
lost. Hold on.
Neighbor.
Had a brief intermission there. One of Anisha's her parents' neighbors, because we're at my in-laws' house, came and drove past, saw us on the porch, and wanted to drop off a watermelon.
A yellow watermelon.
Yellow
Yum.
watermelon. So that's that. But yeah, so and if you were to drop her off at the age of 22 by herself in a different state, or even farther away from her parents, I don't have confidence that
I use
would,
GPS to still get around Toledo.
right. I wouldn't have confidence that she would be able to live and survive and do the things that she was doing.
I want to try it once just to see. It'd probably be like that episode of The Office when Michael Scott, when he's like, drop me off in the middle of the woods, and Dwight was like not that close.
Dwight was.
He was not that far behind.
I would be Dwight, or your dad would be.
He'd be
Dwight
trying to eat. He was eating those mushrooms, and Dwight came running
and tackled him, and he didn't know what he was doing.
Mm-mm.
Big Office fan, so if you guys don't watch The Office, you've missed out on a lot.
You don't know.
Hilarious moments.
But anyways, back to the fact of so
we get through the crisis.
Yeah.
We pay it. We get reimbursed from the breeder on it, and I think he just wanted to do good business and everything like that. So we get reimbursed from the breeder. We figure out, hey, we're going to have to do this from now on routinely, and I go on with the rest of of drill, being in the field
Mm-hmm.
for that final like week or two, and then
Teresa came up, my niece's mother, Teresa, came up and grabbed her, drove up, grabbed her, took her back home. So it was just me and Braxton until he came back.
Yep.
Yep.
And then I got back, and some time passes, and I end up getting a job now selling cars. So this is July to August, and I start selling cars on my birthday and on her birthday. And my first month actually did pretty well. But that success was pretty much short-lived.
It was horrible. So in between him selling cars, I'm working extra hours at Rooms to Go because once again, the girl that's working there is barely showing up. So I'm going in and doing like 2 shifts a day, and I was completely just tired. I was overworked, but I had constant money coming in. And if you're in this like the sales business, you know that's not a constant type of thing. If you don't sell, sure you'll get your base, but you don't get the extras. And
it was I mean, we were making rent. We were still, like I said, looking back at our time, we started cooking more and like buying groceries, but we were still largely just frivolously spending money on things and eating out and having a good time. But we were kind of creating our own stress and chaos with just not managing the money as properly as we could.
Correct.
But it still caused legitimate friction between what we were doing. So it's one day this is gotta be around September or October, and I think it was September, and
it was September.
I sell this car, and I did a lot of work to get this sale. I had my biggest commission check at that point in time. I think it was like $1,200 or something like that in commission that I ended up getting, which basically made my month at that point in time. Because we're talking mid to end of September. So that kind of made my month. And on top of the base pay. So I'm like, okay, we're going to be good. We'll be fine, at least for September. And then I can pick it up again in October and try to get it more money, right? And try to build momentum. And I bring home this check. I'm happy about it. And Anisha, like, I tell her about it, and she just like kind of looks at me, and it's just like,
this ain't it, Chief.
This ain't it. Literally said, I think, those words. This isn't it. Like, this ain't it. And I was, at that point in time, it was like a gut check. I was devastated when she said that, because then she talks to her mom every day, and she talked to her mom about it and was just like,
I was stressed. I was like, oh my gosh, like, he's working, and you hear all these people that are like, oh, I sell all these cars and stuff like that, and I'm making all this money. And then I'm just like, what's going on? Like, we're making rent, sure, but the spending money that we can have, we don't have that. And we were a household at that time that did 50-50. So it was half. So we each had our halves and stuff like that. But then most of the time, I'm the one that I think every single time that we've ever gotten in a situation, I'm the one that kind of takes care of the groceries most of the time. He'll step in and stuff like that every so often. Like when we go to Costco and it's just like super expensive, he'll do it. But the most of the utilities and groceries come usually from me. So I'm like, okay, we don't have all this spending money to do X, Y, and Z. I like to get my nails done at that point in time. I always have my nails done. We were going to the gym and all this other stuff. We don't have that because it's solely coming from me at this point because I have my set check. But then you're bringing in smaller checks because of not selling enough cars. So I was tired. Like, I was just like, what in the world? And I remember talking to my mom and I was like, this is too much. She's like, yeah, he needs to go. So he needs to leave from there.
I was like, okay, whatever. You know, I mean, at that point, that's like a hit to hit to you as the man that's trying to provide, and now her mom's involved into it. So I'm like, well, this just is like a slap in the
Yeah, we don't
face.
involve our parents and stuff like that, but that was like the first time, and I think like the last time that I really told her stuff that deep into it, because we don't really believe in all that stuff. Like,
Yeah. So that was like, I was like, that was a bit of a slap in the face because all the work that it went into it. And mind you, I'm still going to drill at this point in time too every month. So I'm bringing in a check from drill that goes towards housing expenses. But we just didn't have extra to do extra. And Anisha at that point was used to that. And then again, we were making really good money when I was making really good money when it came to being at Fort Lee, because I was getting paid full time equivalent of my rank, um, which was good because I had no expenses going out besides eating, like in food and stuff, and then I picked up a gym bill. But I really had no expenses going out really like that. I think I had a phone bill.
You had a phone bill.
But everything else, I was just pocketing and like banking money. And again, we weren't really.
Your car insurance and stuff.
Oh yeah, car insurance
and car note.
Yeah,
I wasn't doing that. I didn't have to pay my car note or my car insurance yet, because the car that I had was super old. It was like a 2002 or something like that, like Toyota Corolla. So it was like super old. There was no payment on it. And then my parents were taking care of my insurance and my phone bill. I'm on my parents' plan, and we're on my parents' plan now. So I didn't have to deal with that. And I didn't have any credit cards, so I wasn't paying that stuff. So technically, yeah, we had the money, but once again, like I said, you have to think back then we were making, I mean, it was lower then than it is now. And to us, when you're broke,
it don't matter.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter. It didn't matter.
$1,000, yeah. So
it just seemed really bad. But that's when we got frustrated with what we were living with and stuff, and
where we were living at.
And then Dre came into the picture and started talking to us about where him and Mo lived in Maryland,
which we knew about, that they lived in Maryland
because you had went to Gumbo.
We went to go see them and meet them for the first time months prior to that. I think that was in the summertime, early summertime, around there. So we had seen them and met them. And when we tell you, when I tell you, some of the best people to have around you are other couples that are a little bit farther ahead than you.
Absolutely.
But having the discernment of the advice and stuff, and counsel that they're giving you, and then taking that and using that. So Dre and Mo have been that couple for us for a long time. They are going on their, I think, 6th or 7th year of marriage at this point. I think 6 years of marriage this year. And they've been together for longer than that. And they've just given us very wise counsel, because of a lot of situations have been similar that we've gone through, as Anisha said earlier. And they're able to speak to it, and just how Dre and Mo would both play the middle. And they would play devil's advocate to both of us when we would go through issues, but they were always a referee, in a sense, that you could go to and say, hey, we would have some pretty bad arguments, and she would text them, and then I would text them. They would text me separately, and we would talk through it, and they'd give me perspective, they'd get her perspective, and then we just kind of get over it after that point and solve it, and then we're good to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, Anisha started, I guess, talking to both of them about she didn't want to be in.
I didn't like Richmond.
Yeah,
it was okay, but I was kind of tired of being in Richmond, and I was like, all right, what are we gonna do? And Dre and Mo was like, move to Maryland. And we were like, I had never ever been to Maryland at all. This was gonna be the first time. Well, besides when we went to Gumbo, that was the first time. But I didn't know anything about Maryland. The only thing that
No,
I
you're
knew
right. That was, I think that was Virginia. That we weren't in Maryland.
No. I'm saying no. We were in. Remember because I stayed at a hotel and Mo came and got me in Maryland. Gumbo was in Maryland.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was in Northern Virginia.
Because that's the first because they had a bonchon out there. I remember we got bonchon on the way to Maryland. Remember you picked me up from work and we went that night.
Yeah.
Where was he at?
I'm not sure where Braxton was at.
Where was he at?
We got him. We were doing WAGs at that time, and we got him a WAG walker that came and picked him up and took him for that weekend.
Oh, so he was with a babysitter.
He was with a babysitter at the time because WAG, they were doing the babysitting, and you didn't need to have all the shots and all the extra stuff. Yeah, okay,
that's right.
Him in somewhere, so we got.
You may have, I about to say either that or you dropped them off because you came and picked me up from work, and we got on the road that night.
Yeah.
And we went to Maryland.
Yeah, either I dropped him off or they picked him up, but we got him a WAG.
Yeah, okay. So we stayed. That was the first time I had ever went to Maryland. But like I said, that was the only time I had knew anything about Maryland. I only knew about Baltimore because of the accent, and then just from people talking about Baltimore is just crazy. So that was it. But I knew nothing of the sort. So at that point in time, Dre was like, well, it sounds like y'all just need to go ahead and pull the trigger and just do what you got to do. So, but that wasn't until I went to go look at other apartments because our lease was about to come up.
We had a conversation right around that time in October. Now,
Adam was like, I heard that you said that you don't like living here. And I was like, yeah, and?
So I was on my way back.
He was sassy.
I was on my way back from drill, and I had talked to Dre because we were in the middle of he was in the middle of mediating a argument between us and a situation between us, and that had come up in his conversations with Anisha is that she just doesn't like where she's at, where we're both at. She wants to move. She doesn't want to be in Virginia anymore, in Richmond, because it's too far away from anybody, any family.
We had no friends besides Josh and Crystal out there, but Josh and Crystal were mostly busy most of the time.
We would only hang out with them every so often.
Yeah.
And the rest of the people that we were closer to, Dre and Mo, and then our families were, Dre and Mo were 2.5 hours away. And then my family would have been the next closest, which was 4 to 5 hours away. And then your family was about 9, I think, hours away at that point in time. So we just wanted to get closer. She did. And at that time, I didn't really think about it. And
I was also tired of rooms to go.
Yeah, she was tired.
I was over it.
So we were like, okay, well, he talked to me about it. And I said, you know what? That wouldn't be such a bad idea. So then I'm on the road back. I'm calling her, and we're talking about it. And we say, okay, well, let's put together a plan. We have our leases up pretty soon anyways. At the end of November or the beginning of November, our lease was going to be up.
But we were like, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to look at other apartments here and try to stick it out, or do we want to go?
Yeah.
And I went to go look at other apartments, and I would show him, and he's like, I'm not feeling it. He was not feeling anything. And that was like the key indicator. Okay, let's move out of state.
Let's move. And this was the end of September going into early October, around that time. So we had a month, legitimately about a month, to get our act together and figure out what we were going to do.
That month flew by. So what was happening behind the scenes was we had to find jobs because we needed jobs out in Maryland. Adam actually landed a job in Maryland, and he was okay. For me, though, when I tell you I had the worst experience looking for jobs in Maryland, I was literally leaving from Rooms to Go and driving to Maryland for interviews and then driving back to Virginia, and was just like, that didn't work out. These were like those sales types of MLM jobs that I was going to, and I did not know that. And I was so frustrated and I was so annoyed, to the point where I was like, it's fine, I'm gonna just go work at McDonald's, because what else can I do? I'm very dramatic, but I wasn't gonna work at McDonald's. But I was just like, I can't do this. This is bad. Adam was supposed to start work at his new job At that point in time, I just kind of quit with the whole going for jobs. Adam was like, we'll be fine. He actually went out to Maryland and found us an apartment. And he toured the apartment and everything. He sent videos. And we were like, let's do it. We got that apartment. Now, the biggest thing is that where's the money coming from? Credit cards.
So, yes, the credit cards, we were on credit cards to move
to Maryland
because we didn't have the cash up front to move.
Luckily that apartment let us put a deposit down on a credit card. They
let us put everything
down on a credit card
for credit cards.
Yeah.
And because I think in Virginia they didn't really do that, but Dre had told us like, no, Maryland they do that a lot. And the apartment that we found was going to be higher in rent.
We were lucky.
2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
We went from 750 square feet to just under 1,000 square feet.
2 bedrooms, a dining room,
a living
room,
a kitchen. Separated kitchen and dining room. Yeah, so it was nice.
Yeah.
We ended up the day I got the job and I accepted the job offer. It was the same day I went there and I signed everything. And we started the process with them because we paid through the portal, put the money down. So Anisha had to, because at the time my credit was shot. And when I tell you guys shot, I mean shot. It fell. I was pretty decent with my credit in college. And then one thing led to another. And then, what was it? It was my student loans hit at the same time of being like I didn't pay them at all and I didn't consolidate them. In a few days' time, months before we decided to move, my credit had dropped 120 points.
So I ended up having to get the credit card, but this was this would be my second credit card. I had one that I ended up getting when I was working at Rooms to Go. It was like a little Capital One card. I still have it. It's so disheveled. It's like ripped and stuff. But I got a Capital One card, and that's what boosted my credit up, was using that card. Yeah. So I only had one credit card. I didn't have all of these issues and stuff like that like he did. So I got my credit up to like a good, like almost like 700 just from that one credit card and just using it and paying it and stuff like that. So I was in a good place. And so then we used mine to get the Discover card. And the Discover card, it gave me 5,000, I think, a 5,000 credit limit or something like that.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
And so we used that for, congratulations, I bought you an apartment. I should have said that. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, hey, I bought you an apartment.
Yeah, but we already solved that issue.
Whatever.
Let bygones be bygones.
Anyways, but yeah, we put that card on and we got the apartment. The next thing, so by this point in time, you're wondering where Braxton is. Braxton is getting bigger, and we're still in this small little 700 square foot apartment. And we have been hiding Braxton this whole time.
Yes.
We were not paying pet rent.
We weren't paying pet rent, and Braxton was on the restricted breeding list in Virginia and even in Maryland.
Yes.
So I think around that time of us moving, Braxton was, and we were hiding him in plain sight, mind you.
Yeah.
We would go on walks, and we would go past the leasing office. We would walk him all the time. The pool was next to us, so when they would do tours, they would take people by the pool, and we would let him out to go to the bathroom around there. So we were hiding him in plain sight.
People would come up. There's a video. I have a video of him, like the police officers coming around looking for something, and he was outside, and they're literally playing with him.
Yeah. So
nobody was worried about him.
When we were looking at an apartment that was within the same management company, and it was in a nicer area, and we weren't going to have to do as much to move into there because they had a lot of our stuff on file, so it was going to be easier. And that was our only option of if we were going to stay there or not in Richmond. And we made the decision of, no, we're not going to go. We're not going to stay here. But they had to send somebody inside our apartment to check it out.
Oh my
And
God.
that was the weirdest thing to us.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, we're definitely not going to go because we were both at work and Braxton was in his crate at home. And as they were walking into the door, we had just given them the no, we do not consent for you to go in. We're not going to
probably started barking.
And he probably started barking. So they didn't see, but they closed the door and said, hey, you have a dog on the premises. Just pay the pet rent, which was, I think, a $1.50 a month. And we said, okay, we'll pay it as we leave. They're like, just pay us a month of it because they didn't know how long he was there for or whatever.
Didn't they end up sending us something later on? So they ended up asking for the money, but then they ended up sending us something later on saying that they owed us money.
I think so.
And we ended up getting a check from them. So I was just like, whatever. But yeah, so he was definitely hiding out, but we weren't gonna, no. So we just let that go. But we knew that there were different restrictions in Maryland and we were going to follow those rules. And we did follow those rules.
Which you had gone.
Well, we'll get to that, but we have to talk about the moving process.
Yeah, I asked when I signed up for us to go there of, hey, we do have a dog. He's a bigger dog. We have paperwork on him as far as him being a service.
No, we didn't have paperwork yet.
Support. Well, that's what I was telling you.
Yeah.
Is that we had emotional support paperwork on him, but what do you need from us in order to, facilitate this move to be smooth? They said, oh, it's fine. We'll send you the paperwork. And they never sent the paperwork.
Yeah, they were like, it's fine. It's okay. So at this point, we ended up getting a U-Haul and we, Black people, we packed everything up at night. As they say, Black people pack everything up at night so that people don't see what they have.
Yeah. And the paperwork will come in play here pretty soon, just so you're following. Just put a pin in it.
So we pack everything up at night. Adam actually has to go into office, so he has to drive to Maryland. So it's just me and Braxton. There's just like little things that I have to put in the U-Haul at the back of in front of the door. So I'll leave those out, and then I'm like, okay, I'll pack it up in the morning. Adam gets up, he leaves, he has to drive to Maryland, he goes to work. So I'm like, all right, this is from my vantage point. So I packed this stuff up, and I was like, okay, Braxton, it's time to go. Braxton he's a little bit bigger now, probably like 70 pounds at that point in time. And I was like, let's go. And if U-Hauls are huge, so like there's like it takes a lot to get in.
It was, I think, either the 15-foot, I think it was a 15-foot truck because we didn't have a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But
and the couch we got rid of. That couch,
and that little love seat that we got
we're like, we'll start all over.
Yeah.
So y'all, I'm stressed just thinking about this. So I get him in the car. Braxton does not, at this point in time, he's never had to jump into something high because my car was low, Adam's car was low, and he didn't have to jump that high. I left my car there in Virginia. We said we were just going to come back and come and get it. So this is a tall jump. And so Braxton's like, I'm like, just get in. So he finally gets into the truck and we are on our way to Maryland. This is my first time ever driving a U-Haul, a huge truck like this. And if you know me, I'm not that tall. So around that time, I was probably a little bit shorter. I was probably like 5'2" and some change. I'm like 5'3" and some change now. So I'm driving and we're enjoying our time, okay? Braxton, mind you, I took him out to go to the bathroom. Braxton did not want to go to the bathroom. He wanted to get in the truck. So I was like, all right. He took a squat in the front seat and he dropped the biggest poop that he could in the front seat. And when I tell you, I said, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I had to pull over to a rest stop. We're probably not even I think we're like an hour in. And so I pull over to the rest stop and I take him out and I grab it. Well, I had a bag. I grabbed it and I put it in the trash can And I was like, okay, let's go and walk around a little bit. Let's see if you have any more in you. So we're walking around or whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool. So then we go back to the truck. And so I'm like, all right, Braxton, let's go ahead and get in the truck. Braxton did not want to get in the truck.
Nope.
I couldn't pick him up at that point in time. But I'm like, come on, let's get in the truck. Every single time I would like pull him to try to get in the truck, he would back up. Like he did not want to get in the truck. He was hiding underneath the truck. An hour kind of goes past and I'm like freaking out. I call my dad. I said, I'm crying. I was like, he won't get in the truck. What do I do? He won't get in the truck. And he's like, what do you mean he won't get in the truck? I said, he's hiding under the truck. He won't get in the truck. Braxton was asleep underneath the truck. He was asleep underneath the truck. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm calling Adam. I was like, he won't get in. I can't stand this. Why did you make me do this by myself? I can't believe you made me do this by myself. He's like, I'm at work. Like, once again, I wanted him to fix the problems.
I'm in training, mind you. This is my first 2 or 3 days of working. So I'm in the middle of training. So I couldn't necessarily take off of work to do this. And this is also November 11th. So we are a week before. My first week of work was the week or so before.
It's so crazy to think that that was November because it was so warm outside.
Yeah, it was.
It was so warm outside. But anyways, I'm just hysterically crying. Like an hour and 30 minutes goes by and Braxton's still not getting in this truck. Eventually he wakes up and then he's like, hey, let's go. So then I get him, he gets in the truck and we are on our way to Maryland. We ended up in Maryland. It was supposed to take us 2 hours and some change. I think it ended up taking us like 3 or 4 hours.
It took you the whole day because I ended up beating you back home.
Yeah, he got off of work and beat me back to the apartment.
And from our apartment to where I worked was 50 minutes away. For anybody that knows Maryland, the state of it, we were living in Baltimore, which we were
Pikesville.
Pikesville. So we were in a nicer area but we were still zoned in the city, I think.
We were like, hood adjacent.
But we were in a very nice Jewish community area. It was lovely, but we'll talk about that in future episodes. But we were in a nice area, but where I worked was in Annapolis, Maryland, and that's about 50 minutes, 50 minutes away from where I was living at. Probably 45 with really no traffic.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's traffic, like on Fridays and stuff, it's going to take me over an hour to get back home. And that's 50 minutes one way.
Yeah.
So I worked the whole day. I was getting calls from her.
I was stressed.
The guy who was training me, he was so gracious to let me take the calls and stuff. He understood because she was stressed out. But then we get there. I still beat her back to the place because we were getting the keys that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I beat her to go get the keys.
We had to get there because the complex had closed at a certain time. So
yes,
we were panicking.
The leasing office closed at a certain time.
Yeah, we were panicking. And so we ended up getting there. Luckily, Adam's line brother, Dewan, shout out to Dewan, was there to help us move our stuff in. But we didn't have that much stuff. Once again, because we just had a bed and that was it. We didn't really have furniture and stuff like that. So he was able to help us and we got pizza and we just sat on the floor and we just talked. But we got a nice little gift from the leasing office, which was a gift card to Target. And
you gave me a nice little gift as we got there. Anisha and I, at this point, because she won't tell you, but I will. Anisha and I were broken up, as she would say, at that point in time. She told me, like, no, we're not together. We're broken up. Like, you weren't there to help me and be with me, so we're not together anymore.
Oh, my God.
And I was talking to Dre about it, and he told me to tell you, and I told you that. He told me to tell you, hey, well, rent's due on the 1st and the 15th, or your rent is due on the 1st of the month, so just make sure that you have the money for the rent, and we don't have to talk anymore. But because she was so stressed out, the only option she could think
do was break up with Adam.
Was break up with me,
mm-hmm.
And I was like, you're pitiful. In my head, I was thinking, you're just so pitiful. Like, it wasn't that real.
Yeah, but anyway, so we got a nice little gift card to
$50.
Target. to Target, a little $50 gift card to get some little essentials for our apartment. And we went in there, and can you believe we went in there and Adam
It was not
used
me.
the $50 gift card, and we still had to pay $200, and he had the nerve to ask for Starbucks afterwards. No, he asked. He was like, "Oh, I can't wait to go into Target because Targets have Starbucks." And so when we went in there, and then after we spent that $200, I was like, "Do you still want Starbucks?" And he looked at me and was like, "Nah, I'm okay." Because you went in there and you spent $200, and we only got a $50 gift card.
For those of you that are watching this podcast, you can see my face. And for those of you who listen and watch the podcast and know who I am and know Anisha and I,
he's a spender.
You know that she loves Target just like every woman does that will be on TikTok or anything else talking about how they love Target. And
he's lying, Your Honor.
Their man has to go in with them and basically put a leash on them.
You know, he makes me hold on to the cart.
Yeah, she's not allowed to be she can't be outside of a 5 foot or 10 foot.
He makes me hold on to the
5
cart
foot radius
at Target. He makes me hold on to the side of the cart at
because
Target.
if she holds on to the cart while I'm moving, she can't stop and get some stuff that she knows she's not supposed to be getting.
Anyways,
we didn't come in there.
But that's what he did. He took the $50 gift card and he spent $200 of it. I mean, he spent $200.
Anisha walked up in there, and the first 10 items she put in that cart, I'm looking and tallying, and I said, "We're over 50 at this moment in time." 30 to 40 minutes later, with a cart full of stuff, she gets up and she was like, "Oh, I definitely want to get Starbucks after this." I was like, "Yeah, we could get Starbucks, no worries." She looks at, I already knew we blew over. She looks at the cart and they're ringing it up, and the lady rings up $247 and then puts in the gift card. And Anisha was like, oh boy. And I looked at her and I said, "So do you still want Starbucks now?" She's like, "No, it's okay. We don't have to get Starbucks." And she was fiending for this Starbucks. She knew what she was going to get. She's like, "Oh my goodness, it's so good. All this Starbucks. Oh my goodness." No. She was like,
I wasn't a Starbucks person. I'm not like a Starbucks person.
It was like one of the, I think it was one of the lemonades or something, or the green teas. It was something.
I'm not a big Starbucks person. The passengers will give me gift cards and they just sit there. I don't really get it.
She was like, "Oh, well, we don't have to go to Starbucks." So yeah, you know the real.
Anyways, so yeah, we ended up getting all that stuff and we went back home and chilled out. Some days kind of go by, and we receive an eviction notice, but not for us, for Braxton. So we're actually going to leave it there. We'll talk about Braxton's eviction and how he got evicted from our apartment in Maryland on the next episode.
Yes, Eviction Boy will be the grand topic of this.
It was so bad, guys. Oh my God. Just bad.
So I can't wait to take you through that story. Again, like, comment, subscribe to the podcast. We're on Spotify, YouTube podcast, or YouTube Music, I think it is.
And
one
Apple.
of the two. And Apple Podcasts. So you can find us on there. We also are on Instagram at the Lovely Podcast. I believe it is. It'll be down in the description below. But make sure that you're following us. You still have time to enter into the giveaway, and Anisha has been super antsy, so we are going to start doing weekly releases.
I just feel like these episodes are too good not to release them like this.
So we're going to start doing, we're going to hold ourselves accountable to doing weekly releases, and we would love if our audience also holds us accountable. Let us know. Email us as well at the lovelypodcast@gmail.com. Send us what you think about it. We're going to start in the next few episodes bringing up some different topics and different segments to the show. We are live.
Do you want to say bye?
You want to say bye?
Come here.
Go. No, this way. This way. Come on. Around. No.
Come on this way.
Come on that way. Sit. Braxton.
Good boy.
Good boy.
There he is.
There's Braxton. Say hi. Say hi, Eviction Boy. So we're going to start bringing in some additional segments as we're finishing up kind of this origin story and getting to the marriage section and everything else, which is really fun episodes that are coming
those
up.
are going to be so great.
The engagement phase in our wedding, planning out the wedding, and we'll take you through all of that. But we have gone on Reddit now and started looking at different topics and giving some value to people and answering questions and giving feedback. So we're going to start bringing some of those topics onto the show and giving you our
these
perspective.
People on Reddit are crazy.
Crazy. We'll give you our perspective. So if any of our viewers and listeners are kind of struggling with similar things or going through similar situations, and you want maybe some advice or some perspective on it from a couple that's just a little bit farther ahead than you, we'd love to give that perspective and that feedback, those thoughts. And, you can take it or leave it, but we'll submit it to you anyways. It is our show and our podcast, so we'll do with it as we please. But we, again, thank you all for joining in and continuing to listen. Be looking out for weekly releases. We'll still be releasing on Saturdays. So it'll be every Saturday now on a weekly basis. Maybe get a little dicey around August, but we'll still get you something as I'm going away for drill.
Yeah, we're a little busy.
2 weeks.
Well,
but
we'll figure something out.
We'll have some episodes shot and releases, so don't worry about that. And be on the lookout. We do have some cool stuff. We have guest speakers coming, not just different people in relationships that we know, but we'll also be bringing on experts in different disciplines. And we'll have different series going on for that. So stick with us as we grow the show. And again, we still want to hear from you. And stay tuned for the next episode next week. And join the giveaway. Stop being losers.
Stop acting like that.
Stop acting broke. $150 gift card just to go eat somewhere, go do something.
Go buy something from Ulta. Go buy something from a store.
Order our favorite Dave & Buster's, and we can break that. We'll probably break that down next episode on why we love Dave & Buster's so much.
We might.
Anyways, always fun with you all.
Peace.